This is my Ruger GP100. Sort of hard to do one-handed. There we go. I'm about to polish it all up, so that's why it's pretty oiled right now and all. Yeah, it's hard to get a really good picture of it here. Unloaded. Anyway. So I'm going to tell you a gun story. And these are true stories. These are the stories of how I got each one of these guns. So this is a Ruger GP100. And I named it Omega. And you might think I'm being cute, you know, but that's actually inspired by Fallout 3, one of the best games ever made, in which your goal is to try to restore a viable water supply to humanity after a nuclear apocalypse. So anyway, there's a quote there, it's, you know, it's well given, and I don't have it exact, but it basically means like, I am the Alpha and the Omega, and I will give unto ye a thirst to drink of the waters of life freely. Something like that. I'm sorry it's not exact. I could have looked it up before I did this, but... And I really dug that, so that's why I call it Omega. And there's also Alpha. But anyway, when I got this, I just want to tell you about all I did was spend my time working on pictures, basically, and trying to survive, basically. So yeah, I was doing all these pictures. I basically spent nothing but doing photos of like young models who came to Los Angeles to try to make it here, and I would give them like the first really good photos of their portfolio, and that was what they would use to get proper photos for their portfolio. And you know, that was great, but that's all I did. And the people, I was living in a garage at the time because I got cheated and ended up being stuck back there, but that came around full circle. But anyway, I was living in this garage, and this garage, well, you couldn't shut the door to it because it had swollen too much from neglect, and so you couldn't shut the door, so it was always open to the driveway, which was open to the street. So at any time, there was always, anyone could just see into where I lived, basically, except that I was off to the side, and there was a sheet strung across like this, this partition that was between a bunch of junk on both sides, or other rooms, or whatever they were. And I just had this open sheet that just, you know, drifted across the side of the garage, and that was the only thing between me and the world. And I had set up my computers there, my special lights, and I had set up my printers in there, and I was going at it. And I did this for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and everyone thought I was a joke. But I lived with it because, you know, I mean, it was enough for me, and so that's what I did. And I didn't own a single weapon during this time. I slept every night, didn't worry about anything. I had all this expensive computer equipment, never did anything with it. Just kept it right there. And and I was fine. And then, you know, I mean, I guess things might have been getting weirder or worse out in the world, but, you know, I was doing my thing, trying to succeed. Thought this, you know, everything I read, you just got to work at it and work at it till you succeed. Little did I know. But anyway, so there I was. And I just want to put this on pause to give you perspective. If I'm like, you know, anywhere, let's say I go to a gun store and they ask me what I do, all right? Or let's say I go to a loan or, you know, some sort of a loan office or credit card office and they ask me what I do. Because I don't earn any money, I pay no taxes, and I have no employer. So what I do is I say, well, you can look at my port at modelmayhem.com/DKSmedia. And they do right there on their computers and their phones. They scroll down through the pictures. That was back when Model Mayhem's site worked on a phone. And then they turn to me and say, okay, so you're a photographer. And that's what they all do, okay? They don't say, what's this shit? This is a joke, right? No, I don't say that. They turn it off, and they never say a word to me about what I do for a living ever again. But I make absolutely no money at it. This is from where I see life, you see. I don't know why it's that way, but that's sure the way it is. So anyway, that was how I was living my life. And, I mean, I was getting support from my mom. Good old mom. And then, I was getting, I mean, that was basically it. It was a landlady. There was nothing in rent there, but she was a tyrant. Tyrant after your soul. Anyway, so then, I'm living there, I'm just minding my own business, and these new, people move into the house because there was apparently this big separation between the people who lived in the garage and the people who lived in the house on this beautiful property in the middle of Koreatown. And, these two older guys, and this was some cholo. It was an older guy. He was all bald now and short, but he was an ex-con. He used to be in prison. So when he came there, he just started throwing his weight around the place. I don't know how to explain it, but he was way older than anyone else there. He was almost as old as the landlady, and she had known him for years. So she just sort of let him do whatever he wanted. He started rebuilding parts of the house. He started changing the yard. He started putting stuff around, there was an area where I typically sat. He started putting stuff all around it. And, whatever, okay. And then he started, every time he would come by, he would always say, "Hi, David." And it made me uncomfortable. I don't know what it was, okay? It just made me super uncomfortable, okay? And he did that every day. And every time I said, hi, I always felt like a dork, and I couldn't put my finger on why. And it just started getting worse and worse. And I don't know, it was very difficult, okay? But he would kept coming, and junk kept piling up closer and closer to me, and, And so I didn't know what this. One day I just woke up in the middle of the night, and I was fucking mad, all right? I didn't even really have any reason why. So I got out a piece of paper and I wrote a note that just said, "Hi, listen, I love you and respect you, and I'm perfectly happy to live with you. Could you stop saying hi to me every morning? I'm a very private person, and I'm focusing on my work, and it's just distracting to me. And I love you. Let's all live in harmony, and thanks. Bye." And I slipped it under his door. Well, he stopped saying hi to me. And a couple, 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I basically forgotten about the incident. And then one day, I'm going to use the shitter, and the landlady comes out waving her cane, and she has this note in her hand, and she's screaming, "You disrespected my tenants!" And I said, "What? I didn't disrespect him. It's the nicest note I could possibly have written." So anyway, that's caused this huge brouhaha where I said, "I didn't do anything wrong. I've tried talking to you about people who bugged me before, and you said to deal with it on my own." So I dealt with it on my own. And so then she started telling me what I could and couldn't do. I said, "I'm not a child here. I pay rent to live in your goddamn garage, and don't give me this bullshit." And so then she and the other guy, this guy who, the ex-con, he goes out into the front of the street, okay, in front of everyone, all the neighbors and everything, and starts saying, "You're, this white boy asshole should be grateful that you haven't kicked him to the street anyway, him and his little computers and pictures. He should just be lying in the gutter now, but for you." And she was just nodding and nodding, says, "Oh yeah, well, I have a lot of homeless people friends. Maybe we should come and get this fucker. Another white boy disappears in the night." And I said, "Are you threatening me?" Very white boy response says, "What does it look like to you?" And there was no one. Everyone was just, every face was Hispanic. There was not a single other white face there except the landlady and her wrinkled face, and she's nodding. And apparently, and that's when I knew that it might not be that day, but it was going to be someday. And so that's when Spirit says, "David, we're getting a gun." And I never, ever had, my dad had guns. My dad had lots of guns. My uncle had lots of guns, okay? But I sold them all when my dad passed away, the ones that I could keep, for Bud. Because, I wasn't going to shoot anyone. I had Spirit. Spirit was going to protect me. I didn't need to be part of this shit. I believed in peace. And, that's what I did. So I didn't have any firearms. I never fired a firearm once with my uncle a few times, and that was it. Over at Lakeview, the Lakeview Terrace, Los Angeles National Range. And I never thought about it again. It's like, I don't need weapons. So that's when, I realized, oh my God, I need a gun. So I didn't even know where to begin. So then I have to go online, and I have to read, I started trying to figure out these places and where I can go and what I can do. And it turns out that I needed a proof of residency to get a handgun in California. You need to prove residence. And I couldn't prove residence because I lived in a garage. You see, but like, I mean, and the reason that was is because, I went to the landlady after, says, hey, I need proof of residency here. Could you just write a note saying that I live here? And she refused. She said, I'll write a note saying you live in the garage. I'm not going to write a note saying you live at this address. I'll write a note saying you live at this address in the garage. I said, I don't want that. Besides, that's going to get you in trouble, not me. She says, no one cares. Well, that's another story. But anyway, that led to, I don't know. I think she's still trying to pick herself up off the ground. But anyway, I mean, I didn't do anything to her. It was all the city. So anyway, so I was like, oh, geez, what am I going to do now, But it turned out that because I was a digital photographer, I had cable going to the garage. I actually had a cable line going to the garage for internet. And cable counts as proof of residency. So I fucked that bitch. Yeah. So anyway, that's when I go and I'm doing all my research. I'm trying to figure what should I get. And Spirit says, well, you should get a revolver because revolvers are more reliable. I said, okay. And then, well, Dad always said Ruger was the best brand of revolver, so I looked up Ruger. So then it's like, okay, so 357 Magnum, that's supposed to be, so I did go to this place called the Internet Armory, and I just started reading all about the different calibers, and the consensus was, with their little chart and their percentages, that 357 Magnum was the most effective handgun cartridge for self-defense. It's not the most powerful, it's certainly not, and it doesn't have the least kick, but all factors combined come together to make it the deadliest round for self-defense. And the Ruger is a double action revolver, is extraordinarily reliable, and it's double built, really hefty to handle really extra heavy hot loads so that, it's not going to break apart on you. And then we're looking and I said, well, gee, should I get a 4-inch one? Should I get a 2-inch one? Should I just get the 6-inch one? I said, oh, should I get like silver or should I just get the blued finish? So that's what I did. So then I find the nearest gun, I start looking at gun stores, and I find this one that for some reason, not only does it have a good feeling to it, but they have posted on the website everything you need to bring in order to complete a handgun purchase legally in California. Every detail on a checklist. I was like, this is where I'm going. So I did that. And then you have to study this handgun safety guide over here in California, pass a 25-question test, which I did, and I passed it 100%. Which is really, I hadn't taken a test in years, but it was sort of sobering because you look around, you see these guys 3 times your age who look like they could take a gun and, shoot you 6 times over right between the eyes and not have any extra holes, and they're struggling with this test, man. And I'm not saying anything about them, it's just that they're not, some people just don't take tests, and it's just sort of weird to see these obviously proficient people struggling with the test, But that, be that as it may, and impressed everyone. The guys at the gun shop seemed kind of impressed. So anyway, then you have to do the, so then I go in and I called them. I said, okay, I want a Ruger. Do you have a Ruger GP100 black with 6-inch barrel? And there's this long pause. Says, no, sir, but we can order it for you. So it was like, I think it was like, it was like it was a lot of money actually. for me, I didn't have any money, so I had to actually I sold old gear I didn't need anymore, and I got this and that, and then, I wasn't paying my landlady rent anymore after that, so that helped. So anyway, so then I go and I put in the order, and there's this really nice guy, and I would name his real name, but even though you couldn't identify him, if you ever, for whatever reason, ever watches this, I don't want him to think I disrespected him, so I'm just going to call him Joe. But Joe was really helpful to me because, he takes it and when I comes in, he says, hey, come in and pick up your piece, and you have to go in there. And he says, have you seen this thing? I said, no. He says, look at this. Look at this. Yeah, Ruger. And so anyway, and I was like, okay, yay. And so anyway, so then I have to wait to 10 days, right? And so then I come back, but during this time, I was like a really long period because, there was no security where I was staying. I was like really vulnerable. And, I had jury rigged away to sort of secure the door, but, like halfway through this, like I'm going by and I hear this ex-con talking to a dishonorably discharged, Army sniper who was in Afghanistan, and they're joking about how easy it would be to make a certain someone just vanish. I said, I don't think he has a single friend. That's not good. So anyway, so then I got so freaked out. I won't lie to you. I walked down to the police station, which was like 3 blocks over, and I was just standing there staring. I think I'm going to tell them that these guys are threatening me. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I was staring there, and I was looking at the police station, and it just, it was so fucking ominous, and it was so sterile, and it was so, ugh, that I said, fuck it, I'd rather die, and walked around. So anyway, so now, somehow I survived. I mean, and it wasn't easy because there were a couple other blow-ups during that time that I won't get into, but somehow we all survived without anyone getting hurt or the cops coming. Well, the cops came once, but they didn't do anything. And, it was mostly because of what I like to think of as my restraint and self-control and that I exercised over the situations. So anyway, maybe it was a little testing to see if I could get a firearm. I don't know. But anyway, so then finally, like, the day comes and I can go and I can pick it up. And so I'm go down there, and, I'd signed up for a lesson because I never handled one before. So Joe's there and he shows me how you hold it and he shows you how you load it, and he takes me out to the range. And I fire it once, okay, and then I fire it again and the thing locks up and it doesn't work. And he says, you got to really press it. I said, I am pressing it. He says, oh, well, it is, so he takes it and he feels with it and fires. That's great. So then I take it again and it locks up. And he says, are you sure? Maybe it's the ammo. He gets factory ammo. We do it again and it locks up. And then he's starting to realize it's locking up too. So then he gets another guy, okay, and he comes in and he has me fire the thing right in front of his face. As long as you don't point it at me, it won't hurt me. I have goggles on it. And then he takes it and he says it does lock up. And he goes, well, you can muscle through, but he shouldn't have to. So it was concluded that the gun was defective. And so here I was, it's the very first gun I've ever gotten. I have people threatening to kill me, and the dang thing's defective. So then I say, well, how long would it take to send it back? Couple weeks. Well, what if someone attacks me and the dang thing locks up? Oh, God, I hope that doesn't happen to you, dude. Oh. And so, now I'm trying to figure, well, Jesus, I guess some gun's better than no gun, right? So I take it back. So now I'm really bummed, I gotta tell you, because I'm here to try to empower myself in the day. I wasn't sure if this was even worse than not having a gun at all. So anyway, so then I bring it back and I dry fire it thousands of times. It never stops having that problem, and I keep it loaded by my bedside. I figure maybe even just showing it to someone else to scare the shit out of them. And when I ended up having to get another gun, because I figured, okay, I'll get a gun that hopefully does work and use that to cover for this gun when I send it back. And that's how I got Alpha. So anyway, that's sort of it for this story. But then after I got Alpha, which would be the next one, we sent this guy back, and within 2 weeks it came back. Now it works like satin and silk.